Hey, welcome to Three and Out with Jason and Kevin. I am Jason. That is Kevin. We are brought to you by CincyJungle.com, SB Nation Cincinnati Bengals site. We are sponsored by, never mind. Brought to you by CincyJungle.com. We're on YouTube on the Orange and Black Insider, and we are also on audio. If you just do the podcast thing, we are on the new channel Believe in Cincy, BLEAV in Cincy, part of the Believe network. It's not just us. It's Anthony and John on OBI. It's Matt and Willie on Matt and Willie No Ball. And it's Bengal Jim and his entire crew on Talking Football with Bengal Jim and Friends. Speaking of which, Jungle Jam coming up the end of this month. Get your tickets. We're going to be there. Kevin and I, yours truly,
Yeah.
we will be there doing a show live. So that's exciting. And yeah, man, because we're in that dead zone, at the end of June, early July, there's nothing going on. So we tonight are going to just rank offensive position groups in the AFC North by team.
Next week we're doing defense. We decided to break it up into two different days.
We're doing offense today.
Yeah, but defense
right?
Next week.
Yeah. Defense next week. So offense today, defense next week. So we're going to break down, rank them by quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, and offensive line. So that'll be good. And then next week we'll do defense, and then hopefully there's something to talk about after that. So, Kevin, you want to get started?
Yeah. Only place to start this is quarterback, right? I mean, that's where we're going to start. It's going to be Bengals number one for me. I think this one actually writes itself. There's almost no content to be milked out of ranking the quarterbacks of
I agree.
Of the AFC North. It is obvious on its face. So next is Lamar Jackson.
I'll tell you what.
Go ahead.
Just to prove a point, I'm going to visually move the teams that I believe from quarterback from best to worst, and I just want you to see if you agree with me.
Yeah.
All right.
Yep. Yes. I do not agree with you. Okay, there we go. For the audio listeners, Jason threw up the Browns first and then Steelers, but then swapped them at the end.
Yes.
Yeah. The Steelers, whether it's Russell Wilson or somehow he doesn't win the starting job. Yeah. Somehow Justin Fields wins the starting job. Either one is going to be better than what the Browns are going to be capable of putting on the table. I'm not certain Deshaun Watson makes it all the way through the season as a starter, even without injury. And then both Burrow and Lamar Jackson are a whole other tier. I think Bengals fans, but mostly the national media as well, is always going to rank Burrow over Lamar Jackson. But both are game-changing levels of talent compared to the other two, which are the dregs of the NFL at this point. I know Russell Wilson might have a little gas left in the tank, but that's a gamble. They didn't let him go because he was killing it.
You know what? I don't know. I don't know if he does. I think that Russell Wilson may have been exposed. I don't know what Pete Carroll was doing up in Seattle to make Russell Wilson look like a normal human being. But whatever happened, he went to Denver and just totally changed. And I think the cat's out of the bag. I think he's weird. I think that I think that I've heard reports about teammates not really like playing with him. I don't think that's just going to go away. Personally, I see Justin Fields starting for this team by week 6. I do. I think Justin Fields is a better talent. Now, I don't think that he's on the same tier as Burrow and Jackson. Neither of the other two are. But I do believe that 85% of whoever Russell Wilson used to pretend to be in Seattle or Justin Fields, either one of those two is better than Deshaun Watson.
Yes.
You agree with that? All right.
Totally.
So, on the running back.
This one hurt me. I for some reason had it. I sat here. I got all my notes. I was like, I don't know why, because I knew all this information up top, but I'm like, man, the Bengals running back room I feel like really has like an edge to it. It might end up being not last on the list. And it's last on the list.
It is. It absolutely is.
Not to spoil anything, we'll get there. But man, I spent a while trying to convince myself that the promise of Chase Brown was enough to move them up. Right. And I might be eating my words by the end of the season. I hope to be eating my words by the end of the season. But promise don't cut it. And this one hurt. So who do you have at number one, Jason, for the running backs?
This is really tough because the running backs in the AFC North outside of Cincinnati Bengals are just incredible. Because Najee Harris kind of fell off and we don't really know where he is. My number one is Cleveland. I have the combination of Nick Chubb and Jerome Ford as the number one. What do you think?
My number one is Ravens. Because Derrick Henry, plus they have a really good running back room beyond that. And I think Derrick Henry might take a small step back just because of age. I have no idea what Nick Chubb's going to look like, period.
It's true.
With that knee injury, I would be very surprised if he looked like the Nick Chubb of old, especially the first half of the season.
You know what? I didn't account for the injury. I'm going to go ahead and agree with you that Derrick Henry, though he's over that age of 30 and could hit a wall eventually, especially with his style of play, he's not going to last forever. But I am going to go ahead and agree with you. I do agree.
Even a declining Derrick Henry is still a top 10 running back in the NFL for the next couple of years.
For sure. Yeah. And if Nick Chubb was completely healthy right now or finished the year healthy last year, I think I would lean Browns, but you're right. I like what I saw from Jerome Ford, but if Nick Chubb isn't healthy to start the season, then it's going to go to Derrick Henry. But I would put the Browns second.
I would too, and that's the potential that Nick Chubb still represents. That's what he might look like back half of the season. It's still Nick Chubb. You have to dig him for health. We're not certain what that's going to be, but he matters, and he's always good.
Right.
And that puts Najee Harris basically next.
Yep. Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren. We saw Jaylen Warren kind of step in and took more of a lead back role over Najee Harris. So I don't know what's going to happen. Najee Harris has a ton of talent. I'm not really sure what's going to happen there. They also have Cordarrelle Patterson. And my guess is that I think they did that mostly just for the new kickoff rule. But yeah, they got a talented running back. And then like I said, hopefully that we're wrong about this. Hopefully Chase Brown really kind of has a breakout season. I think that with a true committee, Chase Brown having a season with like 500 rushing yards and 400 receiving yards, I think that would be a good season for a committee running back, but I'd like to see somebody step up and lead the way. So, but yeah, I would say bringing health into the picture, Ravens, Browns, Steelers, Bengals, which brings us to wide receiver, which I don't think we really need to talk about the Bengals because we're going to go ahead and put them number one.
100%. I still
100%.
People forget, man. I've seen that wide receiver room ranked like 10th in the NFL.
I know.
That's a wild take, and I don't respect you if you have it. You don't have to rank them one. I think
number
I probably
two.
Do.
It's in the top three, and I incline to lean towards one.
Yes.
So,
but if you don't have them as a top 10, you don't know ball. It's that simple.
Right. I agree. And I think that some of the teams that can compete, the Dolphins have great receivers. The Eagles have a really good, So, but yeah, in the AFC North, there's no contest. There is no other team with talent at wide receiver. Even if you took T. Higgins off the team, Bengals are still number one because of Jamar Chase.
He moves the needle that much, yes.
Yes, that's how much he moves the needle. So who's number two? Because I just want to read out wide receivers weak in the division outside of the Bengals because Cleveland Browns, they got Amari Cooper, Jerry Jeudy, Elijah Moore. Okay, they acquired Jerry Jeudy from where was he? Denver, I think. And then you got George Pickens, Van Jefferson, Roman Wilson, and George Pickens is talented, but he's not Jamar Chase. And then in the Ravens have told us over and over and over again that all they've needed is like the weapons at wide receiver, but they got Zay Flowers. He really showed me that he has what it takes. Rashad Bateman and Nelson Aguilar. That's their top three. Sure. It's bad. It's bad. Jeez.
I'm not saying it's bad, but it is mid.
Yeah. So
it's mid across the board for me.
Right.
I would have to me, I have the Browns second.
Okay.
I like Amari Cooper.
I do like
Jerry
Amari
Jeudy
Cooper.
Still has something to give. I don't trust anybody on the Ravens other than Zay Flowers.
Right.
George Pickens is good, but he's not great. And I think their wide receiver 2 will very quickly become their new pickup, Roman Wilson. But we don't know what he is.
Right.
So to me, it goes Browns, Ravens,
Steelers. Okay.
And then Steelers, but I want to hear your take on it as well. Do you agree with that? Those rankings?
I do.
This is a hard one. It's all
I know.
It's like it's a bunch of mid-tier wide receiver
right.
groups.
The only one that I like Zay Flowers a lot.
I do too.
But you know what? Amari Cooper's done more with less. You know, I'm gonna stick with it the way it is. I think that it's good enough. I do. So, but I do want to reiterate that the gap between the Bengals and the rest of the division is so huge.
It's wild.
So big.
Yes.
I think more so than any position.
Yes.
The second most
Jamar Chase is a future Hall of Famer. T. Higgins is better than anybody. Our number 2 is better than anyone they have on their team. And I would argue that Yoshi and Burton both have the potential that by the end of this year, they would at least be wide receiver 2 on any of the other teams, potentially wide receiver 1 in 2 to 3 years.
Let me say maybe not Yoshi, but Burton. For you. Okay. Here's a hot take for you. I think Trenton Irwin is wide receiver 2 on any one of these teams.
I could see it.
I'm serious. I really do. I think that maybe with the exception of the Browns, because you have a combination of Judy and Cooper, and that's why the Browns should be number 2. But I think that Trenton Irwin's wide receiver 2 on the Ravens and Steelers. I do. So moving on, then we get to tight end. So, and this is another one where it's the division's loaded with talent. Unbelievable. Yes. I don't think that I don't think that we could really go any further without saying Mark Andrews, best tight end in the division. Ravens are going to be number 1, right?
Yeah. Right. Mark Andrews is one of the best tight ends in the league.
Yes.
Not by any team in the AFC North, because we see him play constantly, but he's perpetually underrated as well. The national stage does not talk about Mark Andrews enough, which sucks because he's on a rival, but it is what it is.
Mark Andrews, if we had left off like wide receiver, from this and just added like tight end into the receiver room, you know what I mean?
Sure.
The Ravens are number 2, and so the Browns because of Mark Andrews.
They 100% are, yes.
Right, but they're alone here. So the rest of them is a little bit tough. I have the Steelers at number 2 because I like Pat Freiermuth a lot, and then they drafted Darnell Washington last year. I don't know if he's going to, what he's going to do for them, but I do like Pat Freiermuth. So I have the Steelers at 2.
We have radically different tiers. Okay. So I have Steelers. I have Steelers at 4.
Okay.
But it's a debate between Bengals and Steelers at 3 and 4 because Pat Freiermuth is fine. You think he's better than David Njoku?
He's done more than David Njoku, and I think what hurt David Njoku has been poor quarterback play, but he's been there with a lot of quarterbacks, and he's not really, he hasn't done a ton. No, he's never really, I'll tell you what, I'm going to just because I'm curious, I don't want to like take a bunch of time, but I'm just curious. So he's been in the league since 2017. He has total yards, 3,264 yards. And Pat Freiermuth, obviously, now we also have to remember that Pat Freiermuth played with Ben Roethlisberger for a little bit, and he's a Hall of Famer. Pat Freiermuth has been in the league for 3 years, and he's half that, 1,537. So, David Njoku has to show me something. He has to put something up on the board. You know what I mean? He's just, I don't know. I think that putting him second just ranks him on talent.
Okay.
Because
but talent is
he had a big year last year.
Is the ranking, aren't we?
You're right. He had a big year last year. Okay. I'm going to go. I totally agree with you. I'm going to say Browns are number 2. And then it's going to come down between. So I personally, then I have the Steelers at 3 because I do like Pat Freiermuth. And I could see the Bengals being number 3 or even 2 if Mike Gesicki plays out the way they hope he does.
In my opinion, Mike Gesicki's ceiling is higher than Pat Freiermuth, at least from what we've seen on the field. Mike Gesicki hasn't done that in a few years. Do we think that's scheme and usage, or do we think that's just the new Gesicki? It's been like 2 or 3 years since we've really seen him pop off. What do we honestly think? I know we want to talk about how much fun Mike Gesicki will be on this team, and I do think that regardless of production, Gesicki with his big frame is going to be fun to watch. But do we think that like he goes back to like old school, like the way he was maybe like 3-4 years ago?
I'm going to say yes, and the reason I'm going to say yes is because I think that Mike Gesicki is going to take over the slot position for Tyler Boyd, and I think that's going to allow the Bengals to put T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, and whoever all over the place. And I think
that is the other thing. Like you want to up your numbers, you want to up how good you look. Have be the fourth receiving option on a team, and suddenly no one's looking at you at all.
Okay, so you arguing for Bengals to be number 3?
I'm arguing it because if you think Gesicki and Freiermuth are at least like neck and neck, then I don't care what Darnell Washington is supposed to be. We know what Drew Sample is. He's exactly what they hope Darnell Washington will be and isn't. And I think Tanner Hudson is an excellent tight end 3. I think he's better than Connor Haywood.
Oh, I totally agree. The Bengals have so much more depth at tight end because they have Tanner Hudson, and they also have 2 rookies, Eric All and Tanner McLaughlin. You know what? You're totally right. I'm totally wrong. 100%. Bengals go here. Steelers, even though I like Pat Freiermuth, Steelers go here.
So, I do like Pat Freiermuth. That's they all at this point. The Bengals getting Gesicki kind of changed the game, and Tanner Hudson stepping up. I think that what we're looking at here within a year or 2 could very much change. I could see Eric All changing the game entirely as far as the Bengals tight end room is concerned. But he ain't going to do anything this year. Even if he does, it's going to be very late in the season, and he's a tight end. It's going to take a year or 2 for him to pop off.
They are saying
I think adding Gesicki changed things.
Oh yeah, for sure. And they are saying that he's going to be Eric All's going to be ready for training camp, which at first they said they didn't think that would be the case, but
we'll see.
Yeah,
tight ends usually take a year or 2 to hit, anyways.
Well, yeah.
Coming off that injury, if he ends up doing anything at all, I'm going to call it a bonus. I'm looking at Eric All for year 2. Anything in year 1, that's just bonus for me.
I'm down with that. All right, well, that brings us to our last spot with the offense for this week, which is offensive line. I went through and I looked at the depth charts for all 5 teams, or all 4 teams. I'm sorry, and I think that I would be remiss if I didn't put the Browns at number 1 in offensive line. I think that they have by far and away the most proven offensive line in the AFC North. Would you agree with that?
100%. It sucks.
Yes,
it absolutely sucks. But their O-line could be the best in the league. This time next year we could be talking about the Browns O-line was incredible. It's the best O-line in the league last year.
Right.
They're at least a top 5 O-line. Nothing's proven until it's proven. But they're probably like 3-2. I don't know, something like that. They're incredible. It sucks.
Yep. I totally agree with you. So brings it to number 2, and I think that it has to be the Bengals. I do too. So I think it has to be the Bengals. They have Amarius Mims, who is a rookie, but it's going to be their swing tackle. But they have Orlando Brown, Cordell Volson, Ted Karras, Alex Kappa, Trent Brown. That's a solid line. That's a solid line right there. The best line the Bengals have had in the Joe Burrow era on paper by far.
Yes,
by far.
I think Kappa, he's gonna get back to form. I'm not a huge Volson fan, but you can't have 5 rock stars in the O-line. That's just insane. If Volson is your worst player, that's fine. The tackles are built in such a way that any one of the 3 tackles could be injured, and we still have 2 quality starting tackles. Because Trent Brown can swing and Orlando Brown can swing.
Sure.
And Cody Ford is probably the first guy off the bench. I like him better as a guard anyways.
Yeah,
for the first time, I actually think that this Bengals O-line has top 10 potential. I could see it going as high as like 8 or 7, which is insane.
No, it's incredible. If the offensive line can even if they just play at like a slightly above mediocre rate, it'd be the best thing that Joe Burrow ever saw in front of him.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like it's been bad. The offensive line has been bad. And when they were decent, he wasn't. So yeah, the Bengals are number 2. And then it kind of brings us to the Steelers and Ravens. And I just looked at it and I kind of thought Ravens 3, Steelers 4, based on the amount of rookies starting. The Steelers would be on their depth chart, which is provided by ESPN. Troy Fautanu and Zach Frazier would both be starters. So your left tackle and your center would both be starting rookies, and the Ravens would be starting Roger Rosengarten. But other than that, pretty much everyone's, a veteran. So
yeah, I tend to agree. I think Ravens are probably third.
Yeah.
I think the Steelers will be better next year than the Ravens. The talent they've added, I'll give it a year to mature. I think we see Broderick Jones take a step this year. But I was a huge Zach Frazier fan coming out of the draft. I was not a huge what's his name, Troy Fontenot.
Yeah, Troy Fontenot. Yep.
But that's because I didn't feel like he fit the Bengals that well. I actually think he fits the Steelers pretty well, and I think he'll at least be a pretty competent starter. That's a lot of young talent coming up. I could see the Steelers having a completely different standing as far as O-lines next year. But it always takes O-line people, no matter what, a little while to hit the ground running. So, I'm okay with putting them last. I just want to acknowledge that, I see the level of talent that they're trying to, add to this team. I just don't think it hits this year.
Right. I totally agree with you. So looking at this complete offensive ranking, there's really nothing here that stands out that I think is wrong. There might be some people who say, hey, I don't like this, don't like that. But I think for the most part, we have this right, especially when it comes to where the Bengals are in this.
Mm-hmm.
So the story this tells me is, you look and you're like, well, the Browns have a lot of helmets in this, these first couple rows. But
what this tells me is thank God the Browns have an awful quarterback.
Right. And that's what I was about to say is this helmet over here, this guy over here, the quarterback, the last place quarterback, if he's anywhere up here, everyone's in trouble. But I just don't think that he's going to be that good. I just don't.
Browns are going to Browns. They built a hell of a team from the trenches out. It is absolutely scary on both the O-line and the D-line, which we got touched on the D-line during this ranking. But we will. And they're throwing it all away by paying a bunch of guaranteed money to a quarterback who is both not good when he is on the field and also rarely not good on when he's field.
Off. Yeah, I know.
So,
yeah,
cool.
Yeah, I love the Steelers being, second to last or last. I could see this possibly being the first team for Mike Tomlin that goes under 500.
Yeah, I think the Steelers are absolutely trash.
Yeah.
They were last year. I think they're going to be this coming year. We'll see past that. But yeah, I think Tomlin is. I mean, Tomlin, let's be honest. We still have this deep respect for Tomlin because of what he's done over the years. He is verging very quickly into Marvin Lewis territory of keeping that team in just mid hell. Yeah.
Yeah. Just purgatory. Good enough.
So they're going to do something eventually.
Yeah. Good enough to possibly sneak into the playoffs. Bad enough that you'll never, bad enough that you won't get a top 10 pick. You're going to be picking 15 to 18 every year. And then what tells me, the story this tells me about the Bengals is if you're going to look at positional value, I don't really care about running back. You know what I mean? I don't care about the stars at running back because the offense for the Bengals flows through Joe Burrow. You got the number one quarterback. You got the number one wide receiver room. I don't think the Bengals value tight end the way everyone else does. I don't know. And the offensive line. So I think that it's safe to say the entire offense is going to go between Burrow, the offensive line, and the wide receivers. Those are going to be the three key parts, right?
Yeah.
All right.
And yeah, and the Ravens really need Ravens. When you look at this, it's very clear the Bengals and the Ravens are number one and number two. I think the Bengals are number one. The Ravens are valuing running back. I mean, they drafted one to play quarterback for them, so they really, really, really like running backs.
Yeah, they do.
I think the Ravens O-line, we have it as at 3. I do think that's likely to be where it stays. If we were to do this again, week 8, week 9, week 10, somewhere around there, I could absolutely see the Ravens O-line being the worst in the NFL.
I could.
It is full of question marks. It has been cobbled back together with popsicle sticks and glue at this point. Lamar will make it look better than it is, but it's going to be rough. I think the Browns and the Bengals are the only two that have a good O-line. Both of them probably top 10. And the Ravens and the Steelers have a absolutely awful O-line, both of them like bottom 10, in my opinion.
I totally agree with that. I think the Browns possibly a top 3 line.
Yeah.
Possibly. And then the Bengals absolutely top 10. I'm not saying top 5 until we see it, but I would say that the Browns are looking, or the Bengals are looking at the top 10. And I agree with you. I think the Ravens are probably bottom 10. The Steelers might be the worst. Or, bottom 3, something like that. And you're facing off against Myles Garrett, Trey Hendrickson. It's not going to be easy. Not going to be easy at all.
And Myles Murphy when he pops off this year.
Myles Murphy when he does go off, exactly. Yeah. And Joseph Osai, maybe, possibly. One day we'll see something cool from Joseph Osai. Maybe.
Yeah. Maybe this is his year, huh?
Maybe. Probably not. Yeah. I don't know. We'll see.
Probably his year. This is the one. Yeah.
This is the one. This is the one where it's not just going to be some preseason play. It'll be
I have seen Joseph Osai as a cut candidate.
I have too.
I don't know, some lists are like, it's usually always like people you'd be surprised might be on the bubble. Those kind of lists. I've seen Osai on a handful. I think that's a bit too much.
Yeah.
But I don't think, I think he's pretty close to the bottom of that 53 at this point.
I agree with that. I don't think he's a guy that the coaching staff could look at and say he's for sure on the team right now, the way Hendrickson and Sam Hubbard are and that Myles Murphy is, you know what I mean? But I'd give him a better than 50%. I think 65.
I think it's even more than that. I think it's like 80. Okay. I do. Not that I think he's going to like do anything with it. I do think he's very, very, very likely on the team.
Okay. You got anything else for our tiers here? Okay.
Nope. That's it.
Again, thank you for watching. We are on the orange. Everything looks yellow. You're right. The lighting on mine, it just looks like I've got yellow screens over everything. I don't know. It's weird. Anyway, we are on YouTube on the Orange and Black Insider channel. Follow us, like, subscribe. It's not just us. It's OBI with Anthony and John. It's Matt and Willie No Ball with Matt Minich and Willie Lutz. And it's also Bengal Jim and Friends, Talking Football with Bengal Jim and Friends. And then we are now a proud member of Believe, the Believe Network, BLEAV. Believe in Cincy. Update your RSS feeds. Like, subscribe anywhere that you get podcasts. That's where that'll be. So search for Believe in Cincy, and then we're obviously 3 and Out on that channel. And Jungle Jam's coming up at the end of this month. Get your tickets for $20. It looks like it's going to be awesome.
Jungle Jam could end up being a hell of a time.
Oh yeah,
it really could. It's starting to look really, really cool, man.
I am very, very pumped about it. I'm very excited about it. So get your tickets, check it out, and we'll be back next week where we're going to rank the defensive side, right?
Yep, there we go.
All right. Well, for Kevin, I'm Jason. Have a good week and Hoo Day.
Hoo Day.